Mr. Nigel Farage.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Donald. Well, Martin Schulz, and I wouldn't exactly describe him as a friend of mine. He was leader in the European Parliament of the Socialist Group and nearly always used to interrupt my speeches by screaming at me. He then went on to become the president of the European Parliament and then off, of course, to head the Socialist Party in Germany. He didn't become the biggest party in the election. Angela Merkel did, but it now looks like another grand coalition in Germany with Merkel as Chancellor, and Schulz will be, almost certainly, the Vice-Chancellor in Germany. Now, I've always viewed Schulz as being a complete political fanatic, and in my view, a very, very dangerous man, an obsessive, a complete believer in the European project. But at least he's always told the truth, and never more so than today, when at the conference, the party conference of the Social Democrats, he said that he's now committed to building a United States of Europe by 2025. He wants to have a new constitutional treaty. He wants to put it to all the member states in a referendum, and any that reject it simply get kicked out. So that's where he wants to go. And he's not alone in this. Mr Verhofstadt, who of course is the European Parliament's chief negotiator, he's very much in favour of a United States of Europe. And on the Ian Dale show, we had that great friend of mine, Lord Heseltine, who, when Ian asked him, did he support a United States of Europe, said yes. Hasn't told us that for the last 50 years, has he? He's kept that quiet for the last 50 years. And I have to say that whenever I hear people saying, oh, well, of course, Brexit only won because of the great lie of 350 million a week that was on Boris's bus, I respond to that by saying, actually, for 50 years, virtually every major politician in Britain has lied to us, deliberately, willfully lied to us about the true nature of the European project. They knew way back from the days of Heath that this was about creating a superstate with one government and one currency, and they could never, ever admit it. Goodness me, Nick Clegg, in the Nick Ferrari debate that we did in 2014, said I was a dangerous fantasist for even suggesting a European army. So tonight, Brexiteers, you've got the night off. You can, pour yourself something appropriate, because I really do, seriously, want to speak to Remainers. But not just Remainers from the 2016 referendum. No, I want to go back and include people who voted Remain in the 1975 referendum as well. And I'm asking you, if you're a Remain voter, would you be happy to be part of a United States of Europe? And if you believe, actually, one flag, one anthem, one state, it's what Europe needs to be, then call me on 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think, actually, I did vote Remain, but I'm rather happy that we're not still part of this and we will be leaving, hopefully, at some point. Then text to 84850. Or if, like me, you think this, in fact, was the secret plan all along, and that actually it won't now mean that just the UK leaves. Many other countries are probably likely to do the same. Then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Watch me on Facebook. Comment there too. Phil is my first caller, a new caller to the show from Eltham. Phil, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
So you were a Remain voter, Phil, yeah?
Yes, on the slight side, I voted Remain, not a strong Remainer, Nigel.
Yes.
And but it's very disturbing. I don't like the idea of having the euro. I think it's great. I remember the exchange rate mechanism, and I certainly don't like the idea of a United States of Europe with one voice, because Greece is suffering, and now potentially a socialist government, and you'll lose left, right, and centre. They want more or less want you to think the same. So basically, I wouldn't be happy with those two things. And the euro would be, because of the exchange rate mechanism and fiasco.
Yeah.
I'm glad we've been out of that, and that would be the final straw for me. So,
But isn't it funny, Phil? Isn't it funny? Because actually, I've been saying since the early mid-1990s that they wanted to create a United States of Europe, and I've been called, a fantasist, a nutcase, a lunatic, deranged, and they're the things I can say live on air that have been said about me. And yet, isn't the truth of it, Phil, that actually, secretly, they'd planned this all along and just not told us?
Well, maybe you might be right there, Nigel. I don't know, but it's very, very worrying indeed. I mean, obviously the 52-48. I'm one of the people accept democracy 52-1.
Yes.
I prefer to remain to be. I don't like soft and hard, but I would be a soft centre. But I certainly, as you say, those three things, it's certainly not good, Nigel. So
on balance, Phil, despite the judgment you took last year, given the facts as they're now being presented, given what Schulz has said, given what Mr. Juncker said just a few months ago, on balance, do you think we're now headed in the right direction?
Probably, if that was the case, the answer is definitely yes.
Okay.
Because I use Greece as an example. You know what the foreign minister's like. They are a socialist country in principle, but it's almost like the European Union won't let them have their political views because they have to follow because of the euro and the debt rate.
Yeah, so, no. I mean, Greece has been destroyed by being in the wrong currency, and it's a tragedy to watch that nation become a third world country before our very eyes. Phil, I thank you very much for your point of view and your call. Stephen from Battersea, another new caller. Good evening, Stephen.
Hi there.
So, were you a Remain voter, Stephen?
I was, yeah.
You were. And how do you feel about this moving on into the open fully and becoming a United States of Europe?
Well, I think you're a very clever wordsmith, Nigel. One man who has no authority, apart from being the leader of a party that's not in government in Germany, has instigated this discussion that you're having tonight. I think you're blowing it out of all proportion.
Okay.
So I think certainly, before you lay into me, I do agree that many people, and always have, in the European model, want this federal system, which not everyone, and not myself, want. But I don't think to jump to conclusions that this is now somehow the guaranteed policy of all members of the European Union it's ridiculous, to be honest.
If it was a federal system, Stephen, I wouldn't want it or like it, but I'd be far less critical of it. This is not a federal Europe that Schulz and others are proposing. It is a centralised, unitary Europe over which the voters have little or no power. If you think of a federal model, take, for example, the United States of America. An individual state in the USA has much more freedom over making its own laws over a whole raft of areas of its social life and its economic life, completely separate from Washington. Under the Brussels system that is being developed and is going full throttle as we speak, all power resides at the centre.
Why do you say going full throttle? This is. I'm not disputing any of the things you've just said. Again, you're going into it because it makes you sound clever, and indeed you are clever.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what then, Stephen.
Wait. You just had about 30 seconds, so give me about 10. Martin Schulz, whoever this man is, has gone forward this proposal. It's a headline. It's an explosive headline, and now you're using it to prove somehow that everyone who voted Remain or everyone who believes in some part of the European Union wants the United States of Europe. It's not true. It's not an official policy. And were it to become an official policy, that would be the time for the debate.
This is very interesting, Stephen, because in September, I sat not 10 yards from Mr. Juncker, who gave his annual State of the Union speech. All right? And he's the boss man. He is the head honcho in the European Union.
While he's in the post, yeah, he is.
And he said in his speech that we're to move towards a single EU president, because there are too many presidents and it's too confusing. That member states are to lose their veto over tax and foreign policy. That there is to be a Eurozone finance minister with the ability to intervene in member state economies. There is to be the completion of the European Army, Air Force and Navy by 2025. And I could go on and on and on. It couldn't have been clearer that what Juncker was saying as the boss of the European Union in September was that they are moving towards a fully unified, centrally controlled Europe. Now,
and how do they do that, considering there were 28 members, there now are to be soon 27 members? Do you do that without giving any of those members a vote? Is it just Mr. Juncker by himself who gets to decide what he wants when he wakes up?
No.
So if we had remained members of the European Union, we would have remained with one vote, and that vote would have been crucial. And many others would have had worries about what this proposal that Mr. Schulz is making. So to claim on national radio and on national television that somehow this plot by these secret federalists or people in favour of the United States of Europe is going to somehow encapsulate everyone's lives and force this upon us without us having a say is a complete fallacy.
Well, let's try
just to stoke resentment.
Well, let's try Viviane Reding, shall we? She was the Vice President of the European Commission in 2014. She said, we need to build a United States of Europe with the Commission as the government and with two chambers. What is extraordinary, Stephen, with this debate is, if you're telling me that you're happy with a United States of Europe, you think it's the right way forward, and that the UK either should or should not be a part of it, I'm happy with that.
It would never have been forced upon us. That's my point, and this is complete red herring.
Well, if you don't, I tell you what, Stephen, if you don't make your own laws, and your own courts aren't supreme, you're quite a long way towards being a province anyway, aren't you?
So therefore, this entire debate is irrelevant because you already think it's the United States of Europe. Is that what you're saying?
I think it is a unified, centrist Europe that has already taken away from most countries the basic facets that you would consider to make up a nation state. But I
understand that. We would disagree on that, probably very politely. But my point is that you have to be very specific and detailed about what you're discussing. This is a proposal by one man. Perhaps there are another thousand.
Come on. It's Mr. Juncker, it's Mr. Verhofstadt. And do you know something, Stephen? When Juncker gave that speech, the big, we're heading towards becoming a United States of Europe, hundreds of them, all around me, MEPs, stood and applauded. These aren't the odd voices off centre. This is now the mainstream view, Stephen, in the European institutions.
Can I ask you a question then, not a debate? I'll ask you a simple question since you're in the European Parliament. If this were to happen under the current system, and I want you to say it on live radio, when there are 27 member states or 28 member states, and someone puts forward, as they did in the past, a constitution, can that new rule, can that new complete overhaul be forced on one member if they don't want it?
No, and that's why Schulz
debate is a red herring.
And that's why Schulz, I thought it was very interesting what Schulz said, is there should be a new constitutional convention, a new treaty, it should be put to individual member states in referendums, and anyone that rejects it gets expelled from the club. They couldn't.
So that at that point we would have left the European Union because it would no longer have existed.
But
we're leaving it in order to avoid something that may or may not happen.
Well, I tell you what we are doing, Stephen.
Certain people is ridiculous.
We're getting off a train that's headed in the wrong direction. That's my view. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Sexist criminals could get longer sentences under plans to make misogyny a type of hate crime. Sophie and Lewisham, what are you going to tell me, Sophie?
I was coming home from the airport. I literally had no makeup on, hadn't slept for 16 hours, and this guy walked past me and goes, "Cheer up, love." And I'm just like, if it was a guy, would another man or another woman ever say that to another human being? They would not.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, now open in Aberdeen.
Imagine if your business's complete IT requirements could come straight out of a box. Well, that's what Intersys can offer. Complete IT management, cybersecurity, backup and disaster recovery, all straight out of the box.
To see how Intersys can manage all your IT, leaving you free to run the business, just search intersys.co.uk. That's INTERSYS.
And think IT out of the box with Intersys, a partner you can trust.
The binder's broken again, and it's so slow and awkward.
Binding will always be a bind with a budget machine and supplies that aren't really up to it in the first place. Talk to Single Source Binding Machines. Their precision German-made binding machines are built to last for superbly bound documents every time, quickly and reliably, complete with free lifetime maintenance.
Call 0207 515 0539.
Exclusions apply. Lifetime maintenance based on purchase of supplies for the product's lifetime.
You know the drill. Put your savings in the bank, earn interest, feel utterly underwhelmed. It's time to talk to Cufflink, the award-winning peer-to-peer company. They're not a bank, but are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. You lend your money with theirs onto property loans, and you can get up to 7.2% gross interest on the whole lot. Make the most of your savings with Cufflink. Visit lendingtogether.co.uk. Past returns are not necessarily a guide to future returns. Your capital is at risk.
Hi, my name's James and I'm a night shift volunteer at Crisis at Christmas. It's an amazing event that helps thousands of homeless people each year. It can truly change lives. People come through the door with nothing, freezing cold and worn down by life on the streets. But at Crisis at Christmas there's food, company and access to support that can turn lives around. So please, help bring someone in from the cold. Reserve a place at Crisis at Christmas today for just £26 and 8p. Go to crisis.org.uk. Thank you.
Party preppers. Get up to 25% off this super weekend at Lidl. So that's a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon for $3.19. Or a bottle of Barolo, only $7.99. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, excludes NI.
Sky TV customers, bring the magic of Sky Cinema home this Christmas for just £10 a month. Cozy up in front of your favourite classics, like How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yes!
With over 1,000 movies on demand to watch whenever you want. And get a new premiere every day, like Kong, Skull Island.
That's a big one.
So, that's Sky Cinema for just £10 a month. Search Sky Cinema. New 18-month contract. Further terms apply.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
As Martin Schulz becomes yet another European politician calling for the full completion of a United States of Europe, I'm saying to Brexiteers, have a night off, because it's the Remainers I want to hear from. I want to know, would you still have voted Remain if you'd understood the number of people that would come out talking about building a United States of Europe? And I do understand if people believe in that. I might not agree with it, but it's an honestly held position. What I get really confused by are people like the last phone call, Stephen, sort of denying it's happening when it really is. Now, he could be Nick Clegg's brother, I don't know. I get on Twitter, can't believe Stephen is denying the United States of Europe. Why does he think they have created a flag and an anthem? And a police force, and they're building an army, and a president, and they want a finance minister. I mean, it's not difficult to work out, is it? Jake says, I would love a United States of Europe. We need to be united against the larger nations, such as the USA, China, Russia. Against the larger nations. Gosh, Jake, now I find that a little bit disturbing. The idea that we have to build a big, strong empire because we want to somehow be bigger than the others or take the others on. I'm not particularly comfortable with that concept. Chris says, I would still support a United States of Europe. Brexit isn't going to happen. Well, we'll have to see what Mrs May does about that. Diane is very honest and says, I can't remember how I voted in 1975. And James says, well, today they've just confirmed what we always knew. Lots and lots of opinion coming in. I feel that the political elite in this country have been utterly dishonest with us on this for 50 years. Nigel, the great lie has been going on since day one. The plan has always been to treat the population of Europe like mushrooms. They have been found out, and the liberal elite do not like it, says Mick. Alex is calling me from Enfield. Alex, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening. So, you were a Remain voter, Alex?
Yes, I was. Can I tell you why I believe that a united or a federal Europe wouldn't be such a bad thing?
OK, well, Alex, can we just agree that it won't be a federal Europe? Because in a federal system, the individual states can make a lot of their own powers. Under this system, this would give Brussels much more power in Europe than Washington has in the USA. But if you want to tell me why a United States of Europe is the right way to go, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I believe in unity, Nigel. I believe that unity brings power to people and strengthens the whole people included in that union. Let's take UK, for example. UK is reasonably a large country as we are together here. If we were split in 6, 7, who knows what, small countries, surely we would have been much weaker in all sorts of terms, in trade deals, in in influence, in economy, various issues, we would have been weaker. So we're better well-being as we are as a United Kingdom, I believe. So the same thing would apply for United Europe. Eventually, I believe it's a good idea. I mean, the other side of this is also that if we look at the history, and we might have, as you mentioned previously, we might have to take on other big powers or other big nations like China or whoever, or Russia or whoever, because the history has taught us that, and being part of a big union would help us to take on that being by trade or by economically and various ways. So I believe in that being united as people would benefit everyone. There will be slight ups and downs, but in general, main points, main outcome would be a positive for all people as people together. I believe that's my view.
No, I understand the argument, Alex, completely. But this is not like sort of getting a club card from a local supermarket. I mean, this is about people in effect transferring their loyalty and nationality to a higher level. And the point I would make to you, Alex, is you can't build a new state. You can't say to people you're going to have a new identity unless you first seek the consent of those people. Because if you do it without consent, I think you're storing up real problems for the future. You know, we tried this, Alex, with Yugoslavia. You know, in the early 1920s, we tried to unify a whole group of warring nations under one flag, under one anthem, under one leader. We just never ever asked them whether they wanted it, and it ended very badly. So I do think, and I'm going to agree with you on one thing, I think a United States of Europe is possible if the people of Europe want it. But Alex, I don't see any evidence that they do.
I would have thought they would do the right thing, democratic thing, and ask people, or their leaders, their representatives, to sign up for it. But I'm a believer in unity, and that would be a good thing in general. And I know for a fact that divisions do create differences of interest, which often do turn into conflicts, various conflicts. And
okay,
so, yeah,
Alex,
I'm up for it, Nigel.
Alex, you have a sincerely held view. You've explained it very clearly. I thank you. Alex believes in unity, but I've made the point you can't have a new state without first seeking consent. Carl says on Facebook, it's worrying to have a federal EU right next to Russia. Putin won't like it. Well, a lot of things Putin doesn't like. That's not really the issue. The worry I have, Carl, is when I heard Giscard d'Estaing talking about the European Union becoming the biggest military and economic superpower in the world, I thought, gosh, history shows when empires want to become big for the sake of becoming big, it doesn't always end that well. Hi, Nigel. If the EU was British-dominated rather than German, would you want us to stay in? Kind regards, Ed. No. And actually, Ed, here's my position on this, right? I went all the way back in 1999 as an MEP, believing that the United Kingdom was a square peg in a round hole. We didn't fit. Our history of common law, our patterns of trade across the world, across the world, our history of being self-governing, for all of those reasons, I thought Britain didn't fit. But I was of the view that if the rest of Europe wanted it, that was fine. What I've seen in my years there, I've seen time and again the peoples of Europe in referendums reject deeper integration, reject the European Constitution, just to be willfully ignored by Brussels, who have either made them vote again or ignored them and gone round the back of them. And I do not believe this project has consent. And actually, Ed, my view is I don't just want the United Kingdom out of the European Union, I want Europe out of the European Union. I think they've hijacked the word Europe. I don't believe Europe is that flag, that anthem, and those awful glass and steel structures that are there in Brussels and Luxembourg and Strasbourg. I think Europe is about diverse nations and cultures. It makes it the most fascinating continent on earth, and provided they're all democratically run, they will be at peace. Tass is calling me from Paddington. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I'm a Remainer, and I firmly believe that in Europe, only united we can achieve things. And I'll tell you a couple of points regarding to what you just mentioned.
Yep.
Yugoslavia was forced to get together to one country, and once they did, even though they did it under force, they did quite great things. You know, they became an industrialized country. Their economy did well. You know, they did pretty well. Now divided into 7 nations, you know, they have no economic power, and no, they haven't achieved much individually.
Well, Tass, wouldn't it be fair, Tass, on Yugoslavia, wouldn't it be fair to say that they were held together under a totalitarian communist regime, and once that finished, you saw all those old nationalities springing up, and the most awful wars, you know, that we've seen in Europe since 1945, and tens of thousands of people dead?
This is why I mentioned that they were forced to join, to unite, and that's not a good example. But one little point I want to make, and I would like your comment on this, please. Back in the days of President Lincoln, he said very clearly that he is not going to accept the division of this great country. He fought for the unification of the United States, and that's how they became really so powerful, the number one country in the world. There is not even one state individually that would have achieved the status of world power without, being alone. And this is my point. I would like you to comment on this. California, New York, Texas, have nothing in common with Arkansas or Ohio. But
Tass, I tell you what, Tass, they have a lot more. I tell you what, Ohio and California have, in my opinion, a lot more in common with each other than Greece and Germany do. And I think, Tass, if you look at what the introduction of the euro was done, it has actually divided Europe from north to south in the most extraordinary way. And the only way, Tass, in my opinion, I've argued this for 20 years and more, the only way that economic and monetary union could ever work is if there is an overnight cultural change. If the Greeks become like the Germans, or the Germans become like the Greeks, and it just isn't going to happen. Tass, I thank you for your call. I thank you for your points. America, post the Civil War, unified, has become the greatest, most powerful nation on earth. But of course they do share a language and a culture, much more, I believe, than any other parts of Europe do. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Moira Alderson.
There's speculation Britain and the EU could be close to a Brexit agreement on the Irish border. A senior Irish official has said negotiations are moving quickly towards a deal. A government source, though, has said we're not there yet. A British jihadi who had links to the Manchester Arena bomber is facing years in jail for being a member of so-called Islamic State group. Mohammed Abdallah travelled to Syria with help from his brother, who set up a communications hub for would-be fighters from his home in Moss Side. The winner of the 2021 UK City of Culture has been confirmed as Coventry. Stoke, Swansea, Sunderland and Paisley were also in the running. LBC weather: blustery snow showers for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. Scattered sleet and snow for most other places. An overnight low of 2 degrees.
LBC travel: the A12 is solid northbound from junction 28 of the M25 to Mount Messing. It's partly blocked because of an accident. In Custom House, it's slow on the A13 eastbound at Prince Regent Lane because of an accident involving a car and a motorbike, and in Paddington, Edgware Road's down to 1 lane northbound at Connaught Street because a car's hit a building. Because of a signal failure, there are no London Overground trains running between New Cross Gate and West Croydon or Crystal Palace, and there are delays of up to 15 minutes on Southern between London Bridge and East Croydon. LBC Travel, I'm Andy Ivey.
This is LBC.
See Jeff Dunham's all-new show, Passively Aggressive, 20th of May, Wembley Arena.
I am angry because Facebook won't let me on Facebook because I don't have a face! That's good, that's good, that's good!
Jeff Dunham, one of his first UK arena shows in 4 years. Tickets on sale now at myticket.co.uk. Don't miss Jeff Dunham, Passively Aggressive.
At
John Lewis, we'll help you find the perfect gift this Christmas. Our expert partners are always on hand with thoughtful tips and advice, whether you're searching for that special gift or just a little stocking filler. Plus, until Sunday, you can earn double points when you spend on your partnership card, so thoughtful gifts for them can mean a well-deserved treat for you. Terms and conditions apply. Partnership card representative 18.9% APR variable. Credit subject to status. You must be over 18 to apply. John Lewis Financial Services Limited. Points convert to vouchers. Minimum spend applies.
Christmas. Made merrier with Sky Mobile. Unwrap a range of unmissable offers, like the Samsung Galaxy S8 with a Tab A7, for just £30 a month, with 500 megabytes of data. Plus, join Sky Mobile today and get a Sky Store voucher to watch our latest releases. Ring in a Christmas made merrier. Search Sky Mobile. Ends 28 December, 30-month interest-free loan and data plan required for handset, 12-month minimum term, 18 plus, includes handset only and pay-as-you-go calls and texts for non-Sky TV customers. Subject to status and credit check, tablet Wi-Fi only, add to basket at checkout, skystore.com voucher, terms apply.
It's a wonderful idea, really, to offer up a spare chair for older people who always eat on their own.
For those special Sunday roasts, only Bisto Best chicken gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich, roasted flavour. Try Bisto Best at your spare chair Sunday. Ah, Bisto.
Hi, my name's James and I'm a night shift volunteer at Crisis at Christmas. It's an amazing event that helps thousands of homeless people each year. It can truly change lives. People come through the door with nothing, freezing cold and worn down by life on the streets. But at Crisis at Christmas there's food, company and access to support that can turn lives around. So please, help bring someone in from the cold. Reserve a place at Crisis at Christmas today for just £26 and 8p. Go to crisis.org.uk. Thank you.
Cold or flu keeping you awake? It can feel worse at night, can't it? Try Sudafed. Our range of tablets and fast-acting nasal sprays provide effective relief from cold and flu symptoms, unblocking your nose and easing the feeling of pressure and heaviness in your head, so you can take control of your symptoms during the night. For a clear head, try Sudafed. Available in most supermarkets and pharmacies. Sudafed Sinus Pain Relief Tablets. Sudafed Block Nose Spray contains xylometazoline. Always read the label.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
As more and more European leaders talk about the building of a United States of Europe and come clean and be really open about it, I'm asking those who voted Remain in the referendum whether that perhaps now would change their minds or whether they still believe this is the right way forward. And a bit of good news you might have just heard, Coventry will be the next UK City of Culture in 2021, Arts Minister John Glenn has just announced. UK City of Culture. You see, we were told, we've left the European Union, we can't have a European City of Culture. We don't need one. We're going to have a UK City of Culture, and quite right too. And a story today that hasn't received much attention because we're not really supposed to talk about this. It's a bit naughty, really. But a record number of terror-related arrests have been made in the year up to September 2017 in the latest sign of an increasing terror threat facing the United Kingdom. 400 arrests were made in just 1 year compared to 255 over the same period the year before. One piece of good news is that today, one fighter who'd returned from Syria after fighting for ISIS was today jailed in court in London today. Only 449 to go, in my opinion. Back to this issue. I'm going to go to Anthony in Golders Green. Anthony, you were a Remain voter, I presume?
I was, yes.
And since the referendum, you know, and we hear Mr. Juncker talking about a finance minister with the power to intervene, the completion of a European army, Mr. Schulz today, United States of Europe. I mean, does that make you change your mind at all?
Well, I think, Nigel, this whole discussion this evening has actually been pretty amusing to me. I think the one thing I can say is that Europe does appear to be full of people who are full of hot air themselves. But what's interesting for me is you're sensationalising, and you're doing a great job of that, which is what you do so well. And I think how you managed to whip the country up into such a frenzy over the whole Europe thing. But what you haven't realised is that as you continue to sensationalise, then you keep shooting yourself in the foot. Because what you keep repeating, and actually a caller, 2 or 3 callers ago made this point very well, They can't force it on us.
So you're in denial too, Anthony, are you?
No, I'm not in denial. I'm not in denial.
Right, so Anthony, let me ask you, do you support Britain joining the euro?
No, I don't.
Do you support a United States of Europe?
No, but they can't force us.
Do you support a euro? I mean, do you support?
The irony for me.
So Anthony, hang on. But you're exactly the same as the previous caller. If you don't support any of this, why would you want to be in a club that is heading in completely the opposite direction to the things you believe in?
But the perfect irony for me is that, as you pointed out quite clearly, that if we don't want to go down that route, and if you don't sign up to this new constitution, you get booted out. So you know what? There's your get-out-of-jail-free card, Nigel, that you're throwing away. That's the get-out-of-jail-free card. That's the card you can get out of Europe without having to pay, without having to try and negotiate 40, 45 billion, whatever the number is, without having to try and negotiate all these complex issues that no one was even remotely prepared for.
And that, of course, is Mr. Schulz's plan. Mr. Schulz's plan is okay, there are 20 small countries. You're a little country. We're going to hold a gun to your head. If you don't support our constitutional treaty, we will kick you out of the European Union. We will not give you a trade deal. We will, that's what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and effectively use force to push this through. Anthony, I go back to the point. If you rang me and said, look, Nigel, I believe in a United States of Europe, I find that a very open, honest position. What I don't understand is people who say, oh, well, yeah, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with that, but we should still be a member. Why would you want to be part of any club if you don't agree with its ethos? Hello? It's gone quiet. It's gone quiet. Golders Green has gone quiet. Oh, well, hey-ho. But again, I don't really understand that. Very interesting tweet here. It says, oh, Anthony, you're back, are you?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Still here. Yeah, there is one possible argument that says that you try and reform it or change it from within. But hey, isn't it way too late for that?
Isn't it way too late for what? Sorry, for reforming or changing it from within?
Yeah.
Well, I think we as a material member of the club have to continue to exercise our right in the way we want to. If the club gets to a point where we absolutely no longer agree with a material decision that's taken, then we leave.
And that's what the Brexit vote was.
But you're making the presumption, because as the 3 callers ago said, they can't. Europe cannot enforce this on the...
No, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. Anthony, the process... The process of integration, Anthony, happens little piece by little piece. And it's been going on for 50 years. We were told... Anthony, I'm sorry. Our parents' generation were told it's a little free trade club, just vote yes in the referendum, don't worry your poor little heads, and then piece by piece by piece, we were dragged ever deeper into a political union. This idea they can't force us, actually, step by step, effectively, they already have. That's why we voted Brexit. But clearly there are some people who, and I still don't understand, why would you want to be part of a club that has said it wants one president, one currency, one finance minister, one army? If you don't agree with those things, don't pretend it's not happening, because actually it really, really is. Very interesting comment here, and a lot of people who support the United States of Europe believe this. They believe democracy and sovereign states are becoming obsolete concepts. They won't survive this century. So the idea is that the nation state is on the way out and the big supranational structure is on the way in. Do you know what? In 1945, there were fewer than 60 countries in the world. There are now about 230. Every single year, new countries are formed across the world, and they're done mostly under the auspices of the United Nations, under the principle of national self-determination. All over the world, actually, big blocks are breaking down into smaller administrative units because people want to govern themselves. Louise is calling me from Islington. Good evening, Louise.
Yes, good evening, Nigel. I would say you sound as if you were a sensationalist, but I'll downgrade it to an enthusiast. You are a member at the European debating committee. You are an MEP member and you get paid for that. So you show up on some of the meetings. But I missed you on the meeting which was held about Brexit, where each country was allowed to say, or was saying and putting their point across, except that you chose a completely different subject and then left.
Oh, really?
And I don't understand. And then you accuse the European Committee of doing the wrong thing with Catalonia, when you should have known quite clearly that each state has its own system whereby the European people are not allowed to involve themselves.
Louise.
No, because it's a national decision.
Don't make me laugh, Louise. Don't make me laugh. Today, Hungary, Poland and Slovakia, today, all three of those have had legal proceedings mounted against them at the European Court of Justice because they won't accept Mrs. Merkel's migrant quotas.
Well, that's a totally different matter. That is a completely different matter. I am talking as a representative of your country, and you're so keen on Brexit, and you've got so much to say now on Brexit. Why did you not use that time? In fact, you extended your time, and they let you have the time, and they were really upset that you left, not having made
Louise,
any comment on it.
I've no idea. I've no idea what you're talking about. All I can say, Louise...
Wait a minute. If you have no idea...
I've no idea.
Don't know about it, then I'm sure, what are you doing there in the European Parliament?
Well, I tell you what, Louise, if you go to YouTube, Louise, you'll see how many speeches I've given there over the course of the last 18 years. If you're asking me to remember an individual one right now off the cuff, I'm sorry, but I can't. But as for your point about Catalonia, Louise, it's just really interesting that, when it comes to what they see as abuses of human rights, in Poland, for example, almost every single month, the European Parliament has a debate about what is going on in Poland. And yet, when 900 people get injured or beaten up by the police for wanting to express a vote in Catalonia, they decide it's none of their business. It's not very consistent, is it?
Do that. The Catalonian issue is a totally different issue. Europe is not interfering with national debates, and that is why they did not take part in it. And that is, they cannot do it constitutionally. They cannot enter into national debates. That is, the country has to do it themselves. And everybody kept on saying, why doesn't Europe do something? Because they are not allowed to do that. The proportionate distribution about the people who are fleeing is a totally different subject.
Why talk about human rights?
I think you should have said something. You should have said something at the European Commission when they all were talking, member states were all there. Why did you not open your mouth then?
Well, I'm not in the European Commission, but Louise, just quickly, do you support a United States of Europe, Louise?
I think it's a good idea that not every country has different aeroplanes that they're buying for once.
Great, very good, Louise, thank you. We're going to have one united Europe, and if people get beaten up because they want to protest in their individual provinces, that's just fine. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
An apology is being demanded after the Chancellor said disabled workers could be lowering Britain's productivity. How unhelpful are these kind of remarks?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Oh, nice paper, snowman. Oh, you've wrapped it well. No way! I have wanted this fitness tracker for ages. How did you know?
Surprise them with something thoughtful this Christmas. Free delivery on over 10 million new items. From the sharpest fashion to the techiest tech. eBay. Fill your cart with colour.
Oh, I said, let's get a new kitchen, like I was getting a coffee. What was I thinking? Demolishing a room and making a new one? Who does this? And how am I an actual grown-up? Relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Just type in your postcode, what you need, and bam, local tradespeople appear. All who know what they're doing. For realsies. Oh, maybe I should get a new bathroom too. And a dress-up room. And a room for the kittens. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com.
critics are calling Wonder the best family film of the year. It's fantastic and inspirational, says Metro. And Mail on Sunday exclaim, it's a life-affirming joy. Don't miss Julia Roberts, Owen Wilson, and Jacob Tremblay in what the Sun are calling one of the most heartwarming films of the year. And Time Out says it's terrific.
You're a wonder, Augie.
Wonder, in cinemas now.
Is a day of festive indulgence keeping you awake at night with heartburn and indigestion? Get dual relief with Gaviscon Double Action. It gets to work instantly and lasts up to twice as long as antacids. This Christmas, try Gaviscon Double Action. Always read the label.
At John Lewis, we'll help you find the perfect gift this Christmas. Our expert partners are always on hand with thoughtful tips and advice, whether you're searching for that special gift or just a little stocking filler. Plus, until Sunday, you can earn double points when you spend on your partnership card, so thoughtful gifts for them can mean a well-deserved treat for you. Terms and conditions apply. Partnership card representative 18.9% APR variable. Credit subject to status. You must be over 18 to apply. John Lewis Financial Services Limited. Points convert to vouchers. Minimum spend applies.
Because life should be more open to adventure. The Jeep Black Friday offer runs from now till December 31st. With the Jeep Renegade Longitude for just $195 a month, plus $1,775 initial rental, including touchscreen, Bluetooth and sat-nav. So escape Black Friday. Your adventure awaits at jeep.co.uk.
Personal contract hire. Jeep Renegade 1.6 multi-jet Longitude manual. 48-month term. 8,000 miles per annum until December 31st, 2017. Subject to status and stock availability. Participating dealers only.
Party preppers. Get up to 25% off this super weekend at Lidl. So that's a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon for $3.19. Or a bottle of Barolo, only $7.99. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, excludes NI.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
A centralised Europe is coming. It's going to be called a United States of Europe, according to Martin Schulz today, and many others like Mr. Verhofstadt and the leaders in Europe. That is exactly what they want. I'm asking if you're a Remain voter, whether these, and they're not new revelations, we've had them before, but whether this conversation would have changed your mind. And I'm really keen to listen to people who tell me why a United States of Europe is a good idea. And when they do come on, I'm really, really polite and quiet, and I listen to them because they've got a point of view, and I want to know why they hold it. What I don't understand are people coming on saying, yeah, but if we'd stayed in, they couldn't have forced it upon us. Actually, incrementally, piece by piece by piece, that's what's been going on to us for over 40 years. And my real anger is the British political class knew in the 1970s it was all about a unitary state with its own currency, with ultimately its own president, and they lied to us for 50 years, consistently lied to us. And tonight Lord Heseltine says, oh yes, I believe in a United States of Europe. Well, why didn't you tell us that, Lord Heseltine, in the referendum in 1975, rather than, as everybody did, completely deceiving the British public? They tried again to do the same thing. Nick Clegg and others denying the existence of a European army. Who on the Remain side said, vote Remain so we can be part of a United States of Europe? I didn't hear one of them. Perhaps I wasn't listening. I don't know. Assad is calling from Mile End. Good evening.
Evening, Nigel. I've got 2 points. First, I personally think that it's not such a bad idea. I mean, it's just like, again, I wouldn't deny that there's going to be some problems because the bigger the administration becomes, it comes with less representation from the ground roots. But, just like any other country, like United States or United Kingdom, it's no different. There's going to be a problem, but I think the major focus should be about the transparency, not necessarily the title. The second thing, which I strongly disagree with you, is like when you try to bring up a point about that there are different nations and then, can't be put together. I personally think that nationalism is the second worst idea after religion in the world. It has caused the most problems, wars, and misery to the people. There is literally no point that people should actually be proud of being any nation. I mean, it's nothing that they do to deserve that. They're just simply born in that. There's literally no reason why people should be proud of that. And then, I think we have to actively discourage nationalism because there is literally no, we have one planet for all of our humans, and then the way the population is growing, it's eventual that there is going to be interactions among different cultures more and more than they are right now.
Well, let me surprise you, Assad. Let me surprise you. Nationalism, I've seen a lot of nationalism in the last 18 years, and it's growing and getting stronger every single year. It is EU nationalism. You want to see my fellow members in the European Parliament, when the anthem plays, standing, ramrod to attention. You want to see at the opening of each parliamentary session, Corps soldiers marching the flag around the yard. Every nationalistic symbol is there. I've called Schulz. I've called Martin Schulz a nationalist many, many times. Their form of nationalism is so extreme, they're prepared to ignore referendum results. They're prepared to impose it upon people without even seeking their consent. And I'm going to say this, Assad, that in some cases, there are nations within the European Union who are not particularly proud of their recent history. They would find it very awkward and embarrassing to stand to attention, to salute their flag of their own nation state, but they find it easy to do on a European level. And I genuinely think, Assad, as far as Europe's concerned, I do understand your points about nationalism, but I think there is a very dangerous EU nationalism there is an attempt to effectively impose it upon people. And my alternative is nationism, that we live together in nation states that we recognise, and provided we do that in democracies and under the rule of law, I think, Assad, I genuinely believe that Europe will be a healthier place.
I think what's happening right now, nowadays, what America and, United Kingdom, with America is doing, they're actually doing exactly the opposite. They're not respecting other nations' the decisions, their people's decisions and opinions, and then they're imposing democracy all over the world. I mean, the idea that we can talk about... I'm not blaming the United States or UK separately, but I'm just saying that everyone is guilty of doing exactly the same and criticizing others. And I think it's now time to be honest about these things and then actually say, you know what, we need to listen to the people. It's never against one nation against the other. It's always powerful against the weak. And I think the weak are in every single country all over the world.
Do you know, Assad, I as far as the opinion of the people is concerned, if we had genuinely free and fair referendums across the whole of Europe, and we asked the people of Europe, do you want a United States of Europe out of the 20, well, you could just about include us still. Who knows, though? I mean, Donald Tusk is going to make an announcement at 6:50 a.m. tomorrow as to whether there's been any progress towards a deal, so we'll see. But, Assad, I genuinely believe that if you put that question to each of those 28 countries on a free and fair basis, I doubt more than 2 would vote for a United States of Europe, and it may be fewer than that. And that's my point, Assad, that it may be a good idea on paper, but in practice, I feel the peoples of Europe are simply too different. And the only time it was ever really tried was with the European Constitution, and the French and Dutch rejected it, and that was the end of the process. Assad, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. I'm going to go to Owen next, who's a new caller from Edinburgh. Owen, good evening.
Hello.
Hi. So, what do you think, Owen? Were you a Remainer?
I was a Remainer. I wasn't able to vote in the referendum because I was 17 at the time, but right. I was a Remainer.
Yep.
And I would say that, frankly, I think a United States of Europe, while I think that's quite a provocative term, I think that European federalism is quite an attractive proposal, and I think that further European integration would help solve a lot of the problems which people have attributed to the European Union.
If, Owen, and I did mention this earlier on, if the proposal was a federal Europe, where the individual member states ran, their own licensing laws, their own laws on marriage rights, on a whole raft of social and civil issues, but Europe at the centre, rather like America, was to do some of the big stuff, that would be a federal model. All right, but that is not what's being proposed. What is being proposed here and what is being built on is a unitary form of government based in Brussels, where the people that actually propose law and the change of law cannot be voted for by electors or removed by electors. So, I mean, if it was a federal Europe model, I still wouldn't agree with it, but I'd be a bit less vehement against it. I just fear that what they're building here actually is a very, very dangerous formula.
I understand that, and I think that I'm very pro-European, so obviously you can tell that. That's why I'm calling the show. But I don't think that being pro-EU and having a favourable view of European integration means supporting everything that the EU does at the minute. So I think you and I would actually agree that there are a lot of problems with the European Union. I think that it suffers from quite a shocking democratic deficit in its current form.
It does, Owen, but because they had the chance.
I think that if it was reformed effectively, and if, say, the European Parliament was given the power to propose legislation, if there were reforms involved and perhaps an elected European upper house instead of just the European Commission acting as an executive, I think that Europe would be much more able to tackle problems. So one of the problems which I think could be solved by further European integration is the problem of cross-border crime. Eurosceptics talk a lot about how terrorist attacks in Europe are notoriously difficult to tackle because people can move across borders within the Schengen zone far too easily. I would argue that in fact, closing off borders and depriving European citizens of the rights which the European Union gives them is not the way to solve that. I would say that the way to solve that is to institute programs like, for example, a European investigative.
Owen, we've had Interpol since 1923, I think they were formed. Owen, your point about reform, all these arguments were made at the time of the Great European Constitution Convention back in 2004, and all of those arguments were ignored. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'll be here on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins.